Boyfriends is a Webtoon comic. Not to be confused with My Nerd Boyfriend, Boyfriend of the Dead, Fluffy Boyfriend, or My Dictator Boyfriend. No, just to be clear, I'm talking about the webcomic written and illustrated by a popular artist with the internet handle of Ref Rainbow. But hey, for the sake of simplicity from now on, I'll be referring to him as Ray from now on. The webcomic primarily features a polyamorous set of 4 boys, ranging from a variety of identifications and sexualities. The Webtoon Boyfriends aims to be an all-inclusive pro-LGBT comic that acts as a cute slice-of-life rom-com that prominently features and promotes acceptance of all sexualities and gender identities. With all of that said, why does it seem like the LGBT community has a burning hatred of this webcomic? Without further ado, let's talk about Boyfriends, the gay webtoon that LGBT people hate. Take everything I say about this history section with a grain of salt. I did my best to research everything, but you know, lore keeping is just a little hard when everything before July 2020 has been purged from the timeline. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, yes, what I said was true. For some strange reason, there's a phenomenon in which people really hate this webtoon. And I, for one, up until researching this video that is, was pretty unaware of the reasoning as to why exactly it was happening. There's no better place to start than, well, the start. So let's talk about the history. Even prior to the comic's creation, the Boyfriends characters were Ray's original characters, and they would often be the main feature of their artwork, mainly posted to the Twitter platform. They go back at least as early as 2015, but like I said, I can't say for sure, cause you know, everything's gone. It's also important to note that the Boyfriends webtoon originated as simple comics of Ray's OCs on Twitter, and it was fairly simple to how the comic of Boyfriends would eventually turn out. Simple one-shot slice-of-life skits between the 4 characters. It's also worth noting that during this time, you'd be very unlikely to see anyone dislike it. On the contrary, it was actually quite beloved because of its charming pastel color palette and of course its LGBT representation. Ray has been on the internet for a long time, and while I'm not going to go through the effort to drudge up old accounts and aliases, we can at least see that their current account was created all the way back in 2013, nearly reaching a decade on this platform. And this has led them to gaining a fairly large amount of followers, with the current number sitting just above 300,000 followers. It was only a matter of time. Ref Rainbow decided that he wanted to expand his characters from just OCs into having their own fully fledged stories. Along with the recent international interest in manhwa, Korean webcomics, and a new dominant platform of Webtoon, it was a decision that was bound to come. I'll emphasize again that the Webtoon was actually received very positively at first, and for a pretty long while after it was released. I could be wrong, but from what I've seen, it was relatively niche and beloved for its first year of production. That is, until sometime around June of 2021, which surprisingly, the source of controversy wasn't even that related to the comic itself. Rather, it stemmed from the creator, Ref Rainbow, confessing and apologizing for drawing old and not safe for work images of K-pop idols. It also intensified later that October when he also apologized for saying the N-word. Now, I'm not gonna try and justify it, nor am I saying that it was ever okay to do or say these things, because it's purely subjective. If you think that both of these things make them unforgivable and no amount of time nor context can change that, you're completely entitled to that opinion. Again, take it with a grain of salt, and of course, you can feel either way about it. I find myself on the gray end of the spectrum and feel pretty indifferent to it. Anyways, this video is more about the webcomic itself, so if you really desperately need to know about every minor subdrama that involves Ray, you can research that yourself. So with that discourse out of the way, let's move on in the timeline. These 2 bits of controversy seem to be the catalyst of a much larger controversy, and led to people putting a much stronger spotlight on the artist and his webcomic. Of course, it's no coincidence that the first instance of resurfaced drama happened during the time it did. Remember when I said the first instance of drama surfacing during June of 2021? That's right, it was Pride Month. Webtoon honestly has its own problems separate from Boyfriends, that being the fact that its reputation is pretty widely known for being quite panderative to fujoshi and often fetishizes these relationships. But to be honest, not much can be done there. It's like me arguing that YouTube is a bad platform because of its unfair treatment of creators, the way they prioritize and only care about people with lots of subscribers, the way they handle fair use and allow companies to abuse their system to take down content they don't like. But yet, here I am, because where else am I supposed to put my videos? Dailymotion? If you put that analogy back into the terms of Webtoon, there's very few comic-oriented platforms that have nearly as much influence and reach as Webtoon. So despite the less than stellar reputation of fetishizing LGBT relationships, and the subtle racism they give preferential treatment to Korean manhwas instead of giving every comic an equal chance, I don't think that you can blame Ray for choosing to publish his comic on Webtoon over anything else. Either way, what really matters is that Webtoon, as a platform, has numerous amounts of LGBT media, so it isn't a surprise that during Pride Month, they would very prominently feature and promote LGBT comics. And yeah, every time Pride Month, Webtoon prominently promotes and displays the webtoon for pretty simple reasons. For one, the LGBT themes are a key focal point of the comic, with the sexualities of the characters being one of the main features. It's also simple to promote as a gay comic because of these reasons. You don't need to waste time talking about the story or plot or interesting story beats because hey, they're gay. And that's the only purpose they need to serve for a webtoon in Pride Month.
Wait, even me? What do you mean?
What do you mean? What do you mean? I've been in love with you for years, idiot.
I didn't know that.
We've literally f***ed on your bed.
It's a good way to relieve stress.
Webtoon has treated boyfriends to a lot more resources and promotion than other LGBT comics. They provide fully animated voice-acted ads, marketable plushies, and generally preferential treatment when it comes to what they decide to feature on the front page. This section is rather short, but I believe it's pretty important, as Webtoon's reputation of fetishizing LGBT relationships was not a super good look. It also sets up the first impressions people would have about the comic without ever reading it, and being largely out of the creator's control, as Webtoon usually takes the initiative when it comes to their advertisement. The promotional ads and other prominent features Webtoon spotlighted on the webcomic would be most people's first experience and exposure to the webtoon. And we all know first impressions are important. Let's just say the impression it left on me and many others wasn't flattering.
Why does this feel different?
You want to talk more about it? No? Well, okay. You could just chill on my lap then.
Want hot chalky?
What's that?
So, you know how everyone says that cringe culture is dead? Well, reading and listening to hours of boyfriend content has proved me wrong. There's really no other way for me to explain other than the word cringe. The webtoon itself overuses slang in the worst way possible, unironically using words like "hello," "uwu," and "chalky milk." Trust me, I'm just evaporating reading those. It gets worse with bad writing and the abysmal voice acting in the promotional ads. Like, what is this?
Oh, please, I've been a good boy. Oh, please, I've been a good boy.
Honestly, I wanted to get over the whole cringe thing first, as it's definitely my first thought when I was researching this video. But in all honesty, while yes, there's horribly low quality and cringe and embarrassing content, it only comes up occasionally. If anything, I would say the contents of the comic itself is cheesy and corny, but it's not nearly as embarrassing as people make it out to be. If I were to say, The Boyfriend's Webtoon is a very simple slice of life story about 4 gay guys in a polyamorous relationship, while the comic focuses more on the daily antics and one-shot happenings rather than actually telling a compelling story. And you know what, I'm gonna say it, I don't think it's that bad. I've seen other antis or haters of this webtoon claim it's pandering to fujoshis or trivializing LGBT relationships, but honestly, I don't see it. Yes, it's a very simple story, but I don't think you can claim it as trivializing LGBT relationships or representation because of it. I also find it unfair that people claim that it's pandering to degenerates because it features boys' love. Although I have to admit, I think the artist is a little bit of a degenerate anyways. Of course, I don't think it's a well-written story. The characters are, in essence, literally stereotypes of common roles found in school, like nerd, jock, goth, and prep. The story is boring, there's not really any plot or drama, and the story lacks the right depth for me to be interested. There's not really any side characters to bounce off of and create new dynamics and relationships. There's no backgrounds, just consisting of pastel blobs, and outside of character art, I find the illustration to be quite lackluster. And worst of all, the characters that they do have are stale, flat, and only consisting of the most shallow traits. This is just a bit of a tangent, but I said there's no side characters, but I do have to interject. There are side characters, but they literally offer nothing. The 4 side characters are named Nerd, Jock, Goth, and Crep. No, I didn't make a mistake! They literally named the same one-note stereotypes as the guys, but instead their genders are swapped. I just had to add that before someone mentioned it in the comments. So let's move on to the conclusion, shall we? Boyfriends as a webcomic is shallow, boring, and doesn't represent sexuality with as much nuance as they deserve. However, just because it's simple and lacks depth doesn't mean it's trivializing or pandering. Just because the characters act sexual doesn't mean it's trying to make gay men look bad and only be horny all the time. Not everything needs to be deep, serialized, and fourth dimensional. To be clear, I don't think it's the best representation. Oftentimes, the artist is too caught in their agenda of being down bad for the characters that they accidentally forget that ace people don't have sex drives.
What? What?
Hey, quick edit. So I actually got input from a few ace people, and they confirmed that ace people do have sex drives and are severely misrepresented in the media, so it's actually not too much of a mischaracterization that this specific asexual character could be portrayed that way. However, they did say that this came second to the sentiment of who cares, because they considered this quote drama to be so insignificant and not worth giving a second thought to. Especially considering Ray tends to use his characters as self-insert, and without putting it lightly, is severely down bad for his own characters. Of course, it's not like the webtoon treats gay people with a lot of nuance and character depth. The races of the characters are supposedly of diverse Asian origin, but honestly, they really don't represent Pac the best. I mean, look at him, he's got the full-on blue eyes, blonde hair. But it's also not trying to make a fool out of their sexualities, nor is it making racist stereotypes or caricatures of their races. I think a lot of things could be added to make Boyfriends a much better comic, but that doesn't mean as it stands it's a bad webcomic, much less a crime against LGBT that people make it out to be. And let me emphasize the wording on that again. The crime against LGBT that people make it out to be. Because surprisingly, a large portion, 9 out of 10, LGBT people that I asked for their opinions of Ray and the Boyfriends webcomic, they didn't actually feel any disdain towards it. It really is a case of the vocal minority, so that's why I should emphasize that we listen to actual LGBT voices in situations like these. Especially in cases like the aforementioned goth asexuality, because many ace people I asked confirmed that they do feel sexual attraction, and even if they don't, it didn't offend them that that specific character was portrayed like that. I feel like people are treating this simple, if a little cheesy comic way worse than it is. In my personal opinion, it's like gay people have been given some sort of trauma from shows queer baiting them like Voltron, or just flat out insulting representation, to the point where they feel the need to vigorously tear into pieces of LGBT media to shreds if it doesn't perfectly characterize a gay character, because the media will always be doing them injustices. In my opinion, the Boyfriends webtoon is nothing special. It's not necessarily problematic, and in all honesty, I don't find the artist to be that problematic either. My verdict is to tell people to stop caring. So what if it's a little cringy and embarrassing? You're the ones that are seeking out the media in the first place. You don't need to religiously read and check out every chapter digging for a hint of problematic material to make problems out of nothing. Stop the boyfriend slander compilations, stop the TikToks exposing Ref Rainbow, and stop the video essays. Which I know is pretty hypocritical of me, but I spent way too long reading and researching things. I read the not safe for work chapter for evidence of quote, asexual misrepresentation for this video. If you're watching this video, please do so under purely entertainment reasons. Do not, by any means, make more content of it. This is like when I'm supposed to tell you to like and subscribe, right? Right? Like, just, click the like button. I don't know exactly what it does other than inflate my ego and make me feel good about having a bigger number, but I have to assume it makes YouTube recommend the video to more people. And somewhere right around here is like a video recommendation too. Well, I think that's it. I'll see you guys soon. So if you're gonna click on the video, now's the chance. Chance is going.